What's up? So I've tried to do this video like 4 different times now, and every time I do it, it ends up being a 20-minute video. I'm so sorry if this ends up really long again, but I'm gonna try my best to make it as short as I can. So, the question that people have asked me the most since my first video is, how did you realize you were trans? And guess what? That is not an easy question to answer. That's why this is a 20-minute video. Or it was. I hope it's not gonna be. I think on some level I'm still not convinced, maybe? Like, I still worry about it. I have plenty of evidence to support the fact that I am, but I'm still always in the back of my mind concerned that I am gonna fuck up my life or whatever. Like, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know what I'm talking about or something. So, what I'm gonna do is kind of take you through all of the things that brought me up to where I am today, or at least the important bits. So, put on your seatbelts, guys, because here we go. Starting when I was a little kid, like very little, I was never girly at all, really. I always was a tomboy. I constantly was very physically aggressive, getting into wrestling matches with my friends, like beating people up on the playground, even though I wasn't meaning to. Like, we would just get really rowdy playing chase and things like that. I always had to be protecting the other girls from the mean boys and that kind of crap. I thought I was a superhero. Like, I remember I was like 4 or 5 years old. I think I was 5. And we had a Halloween party. My mom made a Catwoman costume for herself, and she made one for me, and my dad was Batman. And I was so like, I liked being a cat, but like by the end of the night I was so frustrated with being Catwoman that I ran upstairs and put on my Batman pajamas because they had a cape. And I just ran around for the whole rest of the night being Batman because that's what I did. I loved Ninja Turtles. I loved Power Rangers, and I wanted to be the Red Ranger because everyone kept buying me Pink Ranger shit, and I was like, no, like, what? A Red Ranger? Like, how do you not understand this? And get to actual elementary school, and like, suddenly it becomes clear to me that pink itself is a problem. And I don't want anything to do with it. There's no more pink outfits. There's no more pink, like, I will not eat pink cupcakes. Don't you dare give me a pink cup. I don't want, I don't want Barbies or really anything like that at all. Like, I don't want any of this crap. And everyone's like, oh, well, she's a tomboy. But there was more to it than that. Like, I remember being intensely jealous of my, like, male cousins because they would get, like, all these cool gifts and shit for Christmas, and my aunts would buy me, like, dresses, and I would freaking cry. Like, I would throw a fit in the middle of Christmas, and I was a spoiled brat, but I would cry because I just wanted, like, the baseball bat. I just wanted the soccer ball. I just wanted whatever it was that they had, and people were giving me crap that I didn't want because it was pink. So, like, I continued this behavior, by and large, as I got older. And then I get to middle school. And I hit puberty, and guess what? For one, I suddenly realize I'm not straight. And for two, I start growing boobs, and I hate that. Like, oh my god, it is the worst thing that has ever happened to me in my life to this day. Like, 90% of my dysphoria is having breasts, okay? The other part of it is not having a deep voice. Like, I freaking cannot stand my voice. It is hard for me to, like, listen to these videos because I absolutely can't stand it. And I made a friend around this time. My bestest, oldest buddy, actually, at this point. I've known him for like 15 years, I think. Anyway, his name's Travis, and Travis, more than anybody, realized that there was something different going on here. Not just a, like, you're a tomboy kind of bullshit, but, like, he even made a comment to me before about how I wasn't really a girl. And I was like, yes, I know. But at the same time, like, it never crossed my mind that I was a guy. So him and I used to joke that I was an android. Like, that was our third category, because clearly I didn't fit into this one, but also I couldn't fit in this other, right? So that's what I was. And, like, I had never, ever had exposure to trans people at all, other than, like, mentions of, like, drag queens and stuff like that, which my parents were very vocal about, like, how weird or strange that was and blah, blah, blah. So to me, like, there was no way I wanted to be associated with that community, so I didn't even bother trying. And then I got a little older, I started, well, first of all, I was goth as hell for years. Like, oh my god, it was really funny. But, and I still, like, I'm wearing, I don't know, I'm wearing a bunch of shit from Hot Topic right now. So, like, on some level, that has not really changed. But, when I got into high school, I started dating one of my very best friends. And she's a girl. So, to everyone else, even though we're both bisexual, like, to everyone else, this is a lesbian relationship. And so, like, it is much more okay for me to wear masculine clothing, because for some reason that is like a green card for whatever you want to do that's male. You're in a gay relationship, so you can do that. Like, one of you has to be the guy, which is really stupid. But it allowed me to change my appearance a little bit. So I owned almost strictly male, like, summer clothing at this point in time. Like, I had tons of boy shorts, and, like, I had boxers that I mostly wore as pajamas, but, like, I still had them, and I wore them every chance I could get. And, like, internally, I never expressed this, I don't think, externally, but internally, I always thought of myself as, like, the masculine person in that relationship, and, like, wanted to take on those typically male roles. So, like, I was always trying to be, like, protective, or, like, that sort of strong comfort or whatever. Like, that was, and inside it made me feel really good to be able to do that. But eventually we broke up, and I started dating the guy that would be my husband. And he was awesome, because he was like, hey, guess what? I don't care if you shave your legs, like, who gives a shit? Even though I did this anyway. And he'd be like, hey, guess what? You look awesome without makeup. Like, you cannot wear it. If you want to wear it, but if you don't have to. And I was just like, what? That's cool. So I felt really good about myself. And then we went to college, and I had a lot of pressure from my parents to do all kinds of stuff to make them happy, because guess what? I come from a very, very, very fucked up family. Tons and tons of substance abuse problems. And I'm not even talking about my extended family, because they're there too. I'm talking about, like, my nuclear family. So, I felt the need to be the one person that turned out okay. So I did everything that I thought I was supposed to do to achieve that, and I worked my ass off in school, and I got a degree that I didn't really even want, because I didn't think it was okay for me to do the thing I wanted to do, and I, like, ended up getting engaged, and then I got married. So I, like, all of this stuff that other people wanted for me to do, like, I was trying to knock it all out really fast, because I just wanted to be done with that kind of pressure. And I tried very hard in college for a long time to be really girly, because I lost a lot of weight due to an illness at one point. So for the first time in my life, I felt, like, really, like, attractive. And so I bought, like, a ton of shit from Forever 21. I would, like, dress up all the time, whatever. Like, not necessarily, like, while I was in class, but, like, outside of class, I would try and dress up. And that only lasted for a couple years before I was like, fuck this, because as much as people were positively reinforcing that behavior by telling me how great I looked and how hot I was, and, like, people flirted with me or whatever, at the same time, I could not stand to look at myself in the mirror or, like, feel my own, like, ugh. It was terrible. I just never felt comfortable. I always felt like I was putting on an act. Literally, I felt like I was an actor in a play. And so, like, we get, like, several more years of me, like, doing really androgynous stuff. Like, I just wore jeans and Converse and hoodies all the time, everywhere, like, no makeup. I eventually cut my hair short, but I only cut it this short. And I had had hair down to my elbows for most of my life, so that was a big deal at the time. But when I was in college, I finally got exposed to trans people. Like, whoa, there are a few of them on my campus, but more importantly, there were some of them that I found on Tumblr, and I got to listen to their stories, and then I started to be able to watch their YouTube videos. And I remember the first one I ever watched in particular, like, it was a trans guy, and I remember, like, bawling. I was in, like, my room in my house, like, where I lived when I was in college, and I just cried. And I remember being really confused by that, because I knew, like, I was very, very happy for this person, But at the same time, I was also really jealous. Like, the crying was coming from a place of bitterness more than anything else. And so, like, I tried for a while to be, like, a good ally. And I looked up a bunch of stuff about the trans community and, like, lingo in the LGBT community in general. And, like, I'm gonna be a good ally. But as soon as I started talking about this to other people, I started getting, like, weird looks and whatever. So I shut up about it. Because I didn't want to be one of those weird, crazy people. And then I got engaged. And then suddenly I felt like I had to do all of the girl stuff again. So I tried really, really hard to do that. And if any of you are from my previous YouTube channel, you'll probably recognize about that time in my life. I tried very hard to, like, be sort of a pretty nature girl, and that was, that was my thing, I guess, I don't know. But at the same time, like, I still wore a lot more androgynous clothing most of the time than I had before. As soon as we got married, like, we graduated college and got married within about a month, like, of each other. So it's like a bunch of big life shit all at once. We moved, like, we were living in a place like 4 hours away from where we had been. So, like, I suddenly had met and achieved a bunch of these life goals that other people had wanted me to do. And I had no more goals to work towards other than have children, and guess what I didn't want to do? Like, I was very firm about that, so I had nothing else. And I immediately got depressed. And then we moved, and I got even more depressed because my parents were not around to give me direction. And largely I got depressed when we moved because I suddenly realized I didn't know who the fuck I was. Like, I didn't know what I wanted out of life. I didn't know what I wanted to do for a career. I had a degree that I really didn't even want to use. Like, I was suddenly at a loss. And I still am in a lot of ways. Like, that is a thing that still bothers me. Like, I will think back to that time and then think about who I am now and just be like, holy shit, like, that's really different. And in not like an outward way, but like the way I'm thinking is very different. And then I developed an eating disorder because I suddenly realized how much I really, really, really hated my body. And I was already thin. Like, when I got married, I looked good. And I ended up weighing about 113 or 115 pounds at my lowest. And I'm supposed to weigh 135 or 145. Like, right now I weigh like 140, I think. So that's a big difference. And I looked like shit. I looked like I was about to drop dead. And people kept saying to me, like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Like, I was having a problem that I couldn't even recognize. And I kept thinking on some level that if I could just be thin enough, I would feel good about myself. But the problem was, the things that were making me feel bad about myself had nothing to do with how much I weighed. So I eventually started looking around online for trans stuff because I knew what was going on, even though I didn't really want to fess up to it. So I started spending a ton of my time following trans people on Tumblr, on YouTube, watching videos. Like, I would play Minecraft and listen to them in the background, and like, that's what I did. And I was convinced for a long time that I was bigender, because I had days at this point where I felt okay being feminine, like I had been, and then I would have days where, like, it was the complete opposite. I couldn't connect with that at all. Like, it was very hard. And so, like, I started finally, after a very long time of this, to talk about it on Tumblr, to talk about it to a few close friends. I told my husband. He was really supportive. And so I'm like, hey, I'm gonna start, you know, dressing a little different and experimenting with, like, pronouns and names and things like this. And so I did, and I went through, like, oh my god, so many different, like, haircuts and styles in, like, about a year. It was ridiculous, but it was fun. Like, I had a lot of fun with it. I started getting a lot of piercings because it was something I'd always wanted to do, but felt like I wasn't allowed to do, especially my eyebrow piercing. Like, oh my god, I'd always wanted that. And so, like, eventually I realized, like, whoa, I'm not having, like, guy and girl mode anymore. I'm just having guy mode. And that was mostly a result of like when I started to let myself do the things I'd been curious about and wanting to do, like I suddenly realized how comfortable they actually were. So I started to feel really guilty about that because I was worried about how people would react, about how my husband would react, about how my parents and my brother and my grandparents and all of this would take that. And I got really, really depressed again. And it got really, really bad. I didn't want to live anymore, and it was not a good time. And then one of my best friends from college died. Very suddenly. Like, I have no idea what happened to him. It was so sudden. I have no way of finding out. I don't even know where he's buried. I could not visit him if I wanted to, and I took this incredibly hard. I'm still taking it really hard, to be honest with you. I started crying when I tried to talk about this earlier. Like, I'm not doing as well as I seem like I am. But the thing about it that bothered me almost more than anything else was the idea that that could have been me. Like, I could die tomorrow. And if that happened, they would put something like loving daughter and wife on my tombstone. And that fucking made my skin crawl. Like, I could not stand that. And that's when I realized, like, no, like, this is just... there's nothing I can really do about this. Like, this is just how I am. And if I don't do something about it, I'm not gonna live for very long. So I had been threatening to get help for a couple years, and I finally went and did it. And that was the best decision I've ever made in my life. Ever since then, like, things have gotten progressively better. I almost don't respond to my, like, birth name anymore. I'm so used to thinking of myself as Corey. I feel very comfortable dressing. I dress in all men's clothing. The only thing that I still have to wear that's women's clothing is like a bra. And I wear like a compression bra to try and bind as much as I'm able to because my boobs are huge. So that's really how it all happened, I guess. Like, I one step at a time. It's just like little things that slowly like lead you to a conclusion. And I know that's not the case for everybody. I know some people like immediately know. And I was not one of those people, mostly because I was so focused on other people's problems for my like first 25 years of my life that I could not focus on my own. And I had to physically be 12 hours away from most of those problems before I finally realized that there was even something really wrong with me. So that's it, I think, mostly. I hope I said everything I wanted to say. And this is a little bit shorter than it was last time, so you did it. If you need me to explain anything further, or if this made you think of another question or whatever, let me know and I'll be happy to do another video. Otherwise, I will just see you guys next time.